All right, guys, so welcome back. This is video number 2 for the topic of Karl Marx. Last class, we checked out some of the topics of class struggle and alienation. So today we're going to continue with the rest of the topics that we're going to check out. So let's go to our presentation. There it is. So as we said, last class, we started with a little bit of information on who Karl Marx was. We talked about the struggle of classes. We talked about historical determinism, gave some examples, and we basically established that Marx's main idea is that the economy has created an ideology. That is, the economy has, in a way, become a center part of our lives in a way that it's determined if something is right or wrong, good or bad, or the normative standards for our society. Okay, so bear that in mind because this is going to be repeating itself over and over. So last class we talked about alienation. Today we're going to talk about the unfairness of profit, uh, unfair working conditions, and what Marx calls commodity fetishism. All right, so we got to this point in alienation. Remember that anything, all doubts that you may have about this, you can contact me through email or Blackboard or Reminds. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the unfairness of profits. Now, you know that in capitalism, the basic premise is, well, any capitalist venture or enterprise, the main objective is to make profit. What is profit? Well, it's making the most amount of gain in terms of money with the least amount of cost. Okay, so making a profit means it's the income versus the expenses equals profit. Okay, and the idea of capitalism is making as much profit as you can. All right, so Marx in Capital identifies that products, items, goods, or services have three types of values. First is use value, which is the value that is derived from using something. That is, for example, when you buy something to consume, you're actually using it. That's the use value, okay? So it's determined by your necessities. How much do you need something? Okay, that is the use value. Then we have the labor value, which is the value that derived from the time and effort that is spent in producing something. So again, for example, obtaining a diamond is way more difficult than obtaining, I don't know, any other non-precious metal. So that's why diamonds are more valuable in terms of labor value because it's way more difficult to actually extract and produce a diamond that's something else. Okay, so it's based on the time and effort that is spent in producing something. And finally, we have the exchange value, which is the value of something when it's sold, when it's exchanged for something else. Okay, so from a capitalist point of view, this exchange value happens when we sell and buy anything. So let's make an example of this. Okay, so let's think about strawberries. So strawberries, the use value would be when you actually eat them. Okay, the use value is in terms of the nourishment that it gives you when you eat them, the nutritional value of strawberry, right? The labor value would be determined by the process, the time and effort that it took to actually get the strawberries to you. So that means planting them, caring for them, harvesting them, and transporting them to where you can obtain them. Okay, so all that accounts for the labor value. And the exchange value would be, well, the price that you pay for those strawberries when you buy them. Okay, so from a, I think this more or less is clear, right? So in a capitalist world, which one do you think is the most important of these values? Well, obviously the exchange value, right? Because again, from a capitalist point of view, things are produced to be sold. So the exchange value is always the most important one from a capitalist point of view, the value of something in terms of money. Okay, so when you exchange something for something else in economy, in economics, we call that a commodity. Okay, so a commodity is any kind of good that is interchangeable for other goods. All right, so basically anything can be a commodity when you exchange it for something else. However, we don't live in a world where we exchange things for other things. Okay, you don't go out and, I don't know, if you produce chairs, you don't have to go out and say, I exchange you 3 chairs for 3 kilograms of strawberries or whatever. We use one thing, which is money. Money is the ultimate commodity, because with money we can interchange money, we can exchange money for everything else. Okay, so through money we give the exchange value to everything. All right, so far so good. All right, very good. So how does this relate to unfairness of profit? Well, let me ask you this: can a human being be a commodity? What do you think? Well, a human per se, a human itself cannot be a commodity yet. Hopefully it will never be. But what can be a commodity is human labor. Now, human labor actually complies with the three sorts of values. It has a use, it has a labor value, and it has an exchange value. Okay, so when when we sell not ourselves as human, but our work, okay, our work becomes a commodity. Now, what is the problem with all of this? Well, first of all, exchange value, being the primary value that we use in a capitalist world, has several problems. First of all, uh, you have to pay the cost of something, the price of something, before you actually use it. So you're basically just buying blindly before you know if you're actually going to use something or not. Now, well, maybe it doesn't work, maybe it doesn't fit, maybe you never use it and just throw it away. Again, you might say, well, you can return it, but even if you return it, that thing's already produced. It took time and effort and money and resources to make. Okay, so having exchange value first, having to buy something to then use it, creates this sort of problem of maybe producing useless things. And secondly, if you have to pay the price, the exchange value first, that means that those things that are not sold are never used. Think about the strawberries. Okay, what happens if no one buys the strawberries? If no one buys the strawberries, what basically would happen is that they will rot. They'll be thrown away without anyone using them. Okay, so if we are basing an economy on exchange value, we are in a way diminishing the others, which are based on actual work and actual use, and not this artificial value that is just made by the interchange of things and money. Okay, so and why is this unfair in terms of human labor? Well, if you think about it, if you want what you want to do is make profits, and that means maximizing gain and minimizing cost, then you need to minimize the cost of human labor, which is the commodity that you're using. So from a capitalist point of view, how do you minimize the cost? Okay, well, what would be the labor value of the human labor commodity? We say that the labor value is the time and effort producing something. So we're talking about a human being. The labor value would be, well, what is the cost of breeding and maintaining a human being alive so they can work for you and produce something for you for the minimum cost? Okay, so again, going back to alienation, this this seems very unethical or immoral. We're using people only as means to an end. We're not seeing human beings as humans. We're seeing them as tools, as ways to produce more profit. Okay, but this goes even further. Okay, so think about any particular worker here in Mexico. Okay, do you know what is the minimum wage here in Mexico? As of today, the minimum wage in Mexico is 123 pesos per day. So if you multiply that times 30 for the month, that adds up to 3,690 pesos per month. Okay, so what does this average worker that earns minimum wage has to buy with those 3,690 pesos? Well, they have to feed their families. They have to carry the cost of transportation, groceries, medicine, clothing, basic services, everything else, right? You think that is enough? Well, I don't know about you, but I think it's not nearly enough. Even if there are several people in the same family that are earning minimum wage, this is not nearly enough to support properly a dignified life for a human being, right? So, but that is, as of today, the minimum wage. Okay, so think about a bunch of these workers that are earning minimum wage. And again, they're earning minimum wage because this represents the least possible cost that you can have for human labor, right? So all this bunch of little workers are working for a capitalist, okay, who is producing whatever you want, the strawberries that we saw, right? So by producing those strawberries, he's paying all those workers minimum wage, and they're barely surviving with that, but he is making a profit at the end, okay, which is, I'm not saying it's huge, but it's a profit, okay? So basically it's using people as a means to an end, keeping them barely alive so that they can maximize profit. But what is the real unfairness here? Well, who do you think owns the companies that produce all the other things that these workers are spending their minimum wage on? Well, other capitalists, right? So at the end, that minimum wage, okay, is making profit for the capitalists, and the few things that they have and that they manage to afford to survive at the end are given as profit to the same capitalists that are using them, and they're exploiting their work. Okay, so isn't that a little bit unfair? I think it is. Okay, so this is what Marx is trying to say. Okay, this is why he thinks thinking about human beings in terms of profit, it's really unfair. Okay, so let's give another example of this. So according to a study by Oxfam, which is an agency of the United Nations, just 9 of the world's richest men have more combined wealth than the poorest 4 billion people. So a recent study found that the top 1% owned more wealth than the rest of the world's population since 2015. 9 of the world's wealthiest people, according to Forbes billionaire list, have more wealth than half of the world's population. So to illustrate this a little bit more, I wanted to share a video that I saw recently where they tried to illustrate the wealth of Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, through the use of rice. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, this is it. Okay, so let's see if we can illustrate the unfairness of profit with this. Okay, let's see.
The scale of $1 billion is really crazy. So let's say 1 grain of rice is equivalent to 100K, and 10 grains of rice would be then a million. Well, how much is a billion? So my Saturday night consisted of counting 10,000 grains of rice one by one, just to show you guys how much $1 billion is. Of course I filmed it, and of course I time-lapsed it, and this is playing at, I don't even know, God knows how fast it's playing at, but so now I'm proud to present to you the results. That is $1 billion, where each grain of rice is worth 100K. Look how much rice this is, guys. That's crazy. I just bought you like a Lamborghini right here, and I didn't even notice it was gone. Here's a $5 million house in California, and oh look, I still have all this money. If you guys like that content, please follow me. I drop a video on personal.
Here we illustrate what we had more or less already saw, like how much money is really a billion. Now, here in this part 2, they illustrate Jeff Bezos' fortune in terms of billions. So let's see.
In my last video, I counted 10,000 grains of rice, where each grain of rice was $100,000. And that was to show you the scale of $1 billion. Well, a lot of you guys asked me, well, how much does Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos have in terms of rice? So that was my mission. I went to Target, I bought a digital food scale, I came home, and then I weighed the rice that was worth $1 billion from earlier. I did the math in my head, and I went to Costco. I got the rice, I brought it home, and once I brought it home, I went to work. I also want to say that I have 5 families that are going to take this unused rice, so it's totally not wasteful. Okay, so the moment you've been waiting for, 100K, 1 million, 1 billion, Jeff Bezos has 122 of these, or 58 pounds of rice, if each grain of rice was 100K. Like, look how big this is, guys. I'm gonna show you the scale here. Put a keyboard in just for fun. Look how deep that goes. That's insane. This is Jeff Bezos' new house that's $145 million in LA. And then, oh my God.
Okay, so with this, I think it clearly illustrates like what's the difference between the ultra rich that we can have with capitalism itself. So what I'm trying to get here is one of the most controversial aspects of Karl Marx philosophy was the abolition of private property. Okay, so abolition of private property basically, in very broad terms, means that, well, private property as we know it, your wealth, your house, your car, your whatever you have, okay, it's not really yours, will not be really yours to use and to just consume to your own will. That means that property will be communal. Now, this has been misinterpreted in a lot of ways. First of all, it doesn't mean that people are going to come live in your house. Okay, what it means is that, well, whatever you own it because everyone has the opportunity to own the same thing as well. The opportunity, right? Not the obligation. So, I mean, for another criticism that is made for Marx is that, well, if everyone makes the same or earns the same, well, what's the motivation? Okay, that's unfair for a doctor to earn the same as a cleaning person. So, but I mean, if you have read the Communist Manifesto by now, you can tell me, where does it say that everyone will make the same? Not really, okay? That what it says is that inheritances should be abolished. Why? Because inheritances create this inequality in which the rich stay rich, okay, and are rich since they are born, and the poor have a very unequal opportunity to actually become rich. So going back to what I was saying is that a lot of people are afraid of Marxism because they say, well, how will you abolish private property? Why are you going to take away what is mine? Well, I'm going to use this quote, okay, from the Communist Manifesto. It says, you are horrified are intending to do away with private property. That it means taking away your property. But in your existing society, that is capitalism, private property is already done away for 9/10 of the population. Its existence for the few is solely due to its non-existence in the hands of those 9/10. So what does it mean here? It's saying you're so afraid that Marxism and communism will take away your property when in capitalism, they already took your property. The fact that this 9 world's wealthiest people own half of the world's money means that you don't have access to that money. Okay, that means that they already took it away from you. You will not be able to access that because why? Because money and resources are limited. They're not infinite. So if 9 people own half of everything, how are you gonna get it? They already took it away from you. Okay, so again, what this is saying is it's not taken away from the rich just for that sake. It's because it's extremely unfair that there's so few super ultra rich people and the rest of the world is in such a precarious situation. Okay, so this is the unfairness of profits. So again, with this example, that same study of Oxfam, and the source is in the comments of the presentation, says that getting the richest 1% of the total world population to pay just 0.5% extra tax on their wealth over the next 10 years would equal the investment needed to create 117 million jobs in sectors such as elderly and childcare, education, and health. Only 0.5% over the next 10 years. So if we go back to the example of the rice, okay, so how much would 0.5% really be? It's nothing, okay? It doesn't really affect them. So one thing that Marx proposed since Capital, and that we actually use nowadays in any capitalist society, is what he said, a heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax. What does this mean? Well, in normal English, it would be, well, those who have more pay more in terms of taxes. Why? Because, well, even though they are paying more, that more doesn't represent any sort of burden for them. They can pay it and they're still rich. So think about it like this. Uh, let's say that uh, someone who earns minimum wage and someone like Carlos Slim have to pay the same amount of taxes, the same percent, let's say 10% out of their income. Okay, so for someone who earns minimum wage, that is 3,000 pesos, 10%, well, it's 300 pesos. That's doesn't seem much, but for them, it's a lot. Okay, that would mean maybe uh, paying the electricity bill or paying transport or paying clothes or some basic need. It's a lot. But 10% for Carlos Slim, even if it's a much higher amount, even if he pays it, at the end, he will still be a multi-billionaire. So it doesn't affect them as much. That's the idea. Okay, that is fair. In that way, we, in a way, eliminate the unfairness of this disproportionate profit, right? Okay. All right. So let's move to another topic, which is worker conditions. Now, for this, I want you to now that you're in your house, look in your closet and see any clothing that you have there, and look at the tag that's in your clothes and see where it's made. Okay, so I bet that if you look through your closet, at least one of your clothes would be made in a country called Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a country that is known for its garments and textile industry, for brands like H&M, Forever 21, Zara, and many others. Okay, the problem is that many of the work that is being done in Bangladesh is done in conditions that are more or less something like this. Okay, so even though there's very precarious conditions, it's very dangerous. People are being overworked, and there's several instances of accidents and deaths and conditions that are similar to the Industrial Revolution, that when Marx was alive. Child labor, people work all the clock every day, and the problem is that's the price that it's being paid for us to have a shirt or a piece of clothing that is, I don't know, 200 pesos. For us, it means cheap clothing. But why do you think it's so cheap? If it's so cheap that it can be sold for 200-300 pesos, that means that all the process for you before you paid that has to cost less, so that the company actually makes a profit. So how much do you think they're paying these people here? And how much do you think they're spending on worker conditions and safety conditions and vacations and maternity leave and all the other worker rights? Okay, I don't think that much. The problem is countries like Bangladesh, their economy, okay, is based on this. So that's all that they have. So it's a vicious cycle in that way. Okay, so but you might think that, well, this only happens in places like Bangladesh or whatever. Well, let me show you mean, I don't have time to show you specifically any videos or anything about this, but if you just like go and Google um, any sort of news based on Amazon worker conditions, well, you can actually see that in Amazon, conditions of work are really precarious in places like the UK or the United States. So it says here, I work at Amazon Fulfillment Center. They treat workers like robots. Let's see here. My internet is not working. Amazon warehouses employees stick out of the brutal reality of working during the holidays, where 60-hour weeks are mandatory and ambulance calls are common. Okay, so again, just Google Amazon working conditions. Okay, urinating in trash can, shame to work, injured, list of employees' complaints, etc., etc. Okay? So again, this is not only for things like Bangladesh or places like sweatshops and all of that. It's basically the premise of any big company that is making all this insane profit. But let me actually show you the other side of the coin, proper working conditions. Okay, so I'm going to show you part of a documentary that is called Where to Invade Next, which for those of you who were with me in the class of global issues, we already saw this. But I'm sorry, I'm going to focus on only one part, which is the working conditions in Italy. So let's see. Okay, so iTunes. Again, the name of the movie is Where to Invade Next. So I'm going to play it. As you can see, my library of iTunes consists on children's cartoons and um, other movies that we saw. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, I hope you are watching this. The problem is I have no way of knowing. All right, guys. So I'm not gonna risk it. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check if oh, I don't know what happened. Let's see. Okay. All right, guys. I'm not gonna risk it because maybe it won't allow me to show you the movie because it's a way of pirating a movie. So what I'm gonna do is if I can record it, I will record it and post it as a separate video. But you will see that the working conditions in Italy that are actually based on Marxist ideas of proper worker conditions and strikes and class struggles that led to these conditions are are way better. And this doesn't really affect profit, or it doesn't affect production or efficiency in any way. All right. So with this, what I want to point out is something that Marx actually proposed, and is that Marx proposed that communism should be implemented in developed countries, countries that actually have the possibility of implementing communism in a proper way so that it will actually benefit everyone. And historically, communism was never applied in developed countries. Okay? It was applied in Russia and China, who were post-agricultural societies that were very slowly entering into the Industrial Revolution. So when they implemented communism, they were by no means developed countries. Okay, so maybe that's the reason why communism didn't actually work. Communism has never been historically applied in a country where they can actually afford for all people to have proper working conditions and opportunities. Okay, all right. sorry about that, guys, but I will try to get you the video. Okay, so um, the last topic that we're going to talk about is commodity fetishism. Now, we already defined what a commodity is. A commodity is anything that can be exchanged for other things, or basically money. Okay, something that can be bought to be consumed. And fetishism is a way of saying of conferring um, some extra or supernatural properties to an object, to make an object something more than what it actually is. Okay, to be obsessed with an object, a thing. Okay, so with this, we can say that Marx is saying is that we're obsessed with commodities. We're obsessed with things that we consume. So this in German is called Warenfetischismus. I don't know if I said it correctly, but okay. So basically, what Marx is saying is that many aspects of our life are related to some kind of consumption or possession of things. Okay, so we're giving material possessions this sort of supernatural meaning because that obtaining or consuming that something is what validates certain experiences in our life. Okay, so think about, for example, a couple that wants to get married. So if a couple wants to get married, there are several things that they need to purchase or consume in order their for their marriage to be valid or validated, right? So what is the first thing they need to buy? Well, the boyfriend needs to buy a ring, right, to propose, right? But after that, there comes several other things, several other consumption or possession of things that we need to buy in order to have a wedding. So we need to have a party, we need to have cake, a fancy wedding dress, we need to have the music, we need to have we need to travel somewhere for the honeymoon and all that. Okay, so all that costs a lot of money. Okay, but without that, it's not really the same, right? I mean, most people, I've talked to people that are already a couple and maybe they're living together, and they say, well, we haven't gotten married because we don't have the money. Well, how much money do you actually need? Okay, so it's a way of saying the fact of having a marriage, to have of validating socially the union of two people depends on purchasing certain things or spending a certain amount of money. And well, that goes even further when you have children, right? When you have a baby, then you will start to spend on way more things. Okay, so you have to buy a crib, so you have to have extra room, you have to have a stroller, you have to have a bigger car, and all those things. Okay, so in a way, what this is saying is this commodity fetishism is that in order to give value to certain experiences in our lives, that value is attached to consuming or owning things. Okay, so we're giving things that special meaning or value to give to our own lives. Okay, so and that several examples of this exist. Okay, so for example, nowadays um, the problem with consumption itself is that we have so much that's available for us at a very cheap price, that now the problem is we're consuming too much, and that is affecting our health, and that is affecting our way of living and the space that we have, and our life expectancy and our relationship with other people. And so I want to show you, to illustrate this, there's a very good movie that is called um, The True Cost. So this movie, this movie talks about the fast fashion industry, which is basically the industry of stores like what we said, Sarah and H&M and all of those that sell things very cheap. Okay, but what I wanted to show you is a part where they talk about the problem with excessive consuming. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, because my internet is not working properly, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna pause the video, and when I have it, I will do it again. Okay, so all right, guys, I got it. So let me go to the screen. As I said, this is a documentary called The True Cost. I will share the link in the resources so that you can have it. And it's extremely interesting. I hope that you can have the time to actually watch it. Okay, so let's see. This talks about the idea of commodity fetishism.
So think of all of the car commercials you see that show, well, I've really made it now. I'm a competent person because I'm driving this BMW or this Audi. Or think of all the shampoo commercials you've seen where the person now has beautiful flowing hair and is loved and appreciated by the people around them. The basic message is the same. The way to solve the problems of your life, we all have problems in our life, the way to solve the problem in your life is through consumption.
Hey you guys! Today I'm coming to you guys with a clothing haul.
I went shopping a couple of days ago and literally went insane and bought so many things.
My spam box, I don't know, where it's literally blown up by you guys saying you guys wanted a haul. So, here it is. Okie dokie, so first off, I have some things that I got from H&M.
So then I went to Forever 21.
It wasn't even a question, it was just like fate. I just had to get it. Like if it could levitate towards me, it would have levitated.
I got this skirt, bright yellow, and it was $8.50.
It's a jean button-up thing.
And I just loved this. I just loved it, loved it, loved it.
It's a gray knit sweater and it has pink hearts all over it. I love tie-dye things. Like tie-dye things are literally the bomb.net. It has a little yin-yang sign on the front of it. I just love these so much.
And it's just this really pretty light blue sweater. I don't even know if I'm gonna wear this now that I got it, because I don't know if I like it that much.
Sorry about that, guys.
I need to stop.
Okay, so this is the part that is most interesting, okay? So
I try to understand better why people doesn't realize that they are becoming poorer and poorer. And I ask myself, okay, but what has changed in spite of when I was young? And fashion is something that has dramatically changed. I was able to buy 1, 2 t-shirts, 4 t-shirts, for example, a year. Now, I mean, also my children, they used to buy every party, I mean, they buy a t-shirt. And so I understood that the fast fashion is something totally new. If you have noticed, the price has decreased in the last years. And it has followed the middle class disappearing. So all the things that people really need are very costly, like home, like study, like life insurance. On the other side, there is a source of consolation part.
come on. Sorry about that, guys. But exactly this part is what is talking about commodity fetishism. Okay, so this idea that buying cheap
Of their
things,
life. I can buy a t-shirt, 2 t-shirts a party or eventually a day, although I'm very poor and I've lost all the
okay, so what it is saying is we're giving
things I really needed.
Today we purchase over 80 billion pieces of new
Basically,
clothing
that's
each
what I
year.
wanted to show you.
That's 400% more than the amount we bought just 2 decades ago. The way we buy clothes has changed.
Let's see. Okay, all right. So that is what I was talking about when we were talking about commodity fetishism. And the idea is things that we actually need, like, uh, for example, housing, buying a house has become increasingly more expensive, and it will become even more expensive when you guys are looking for a home. Okay, so being a homeowner will be increasingly more difficult, and things like education, like medical insurance, and all the things that we actually need to live and to have a good, proper life are becoming more and more expensive. While those things that are basically offered to us through financing and through meses sin intereses and all that, okay, are becoming cheaper, but they're also becoming like a way for us to have some comfort in our lives for not having the things that we actually need. Okay, so this is what commodity fetishism is about. Maybe I don't have enough money to have my own house. Maybe if I fall sick, I won't be able to pay for my medical assistance. Okay, maybe I can't afford to go to the university that I want, but I have the latest smartphone because I can get it at abonos chiquitos for a million months, and that's it. Okay, I can afford that. So that is considering that, well, this is giving me some sort of comfort in an otherwise very cruel and insensitive life. Okay, so what Marx is trying to say is, well, this is a criticism in saying that we're giving meaning to our lives through things, not through actual experiences. Okay, so actually, he says, if we had no financial constraints, if we were not thinking about when I will be able to afford a house, what happens if I get sick, or if we had our basic needs covered by a system that will allow us to have those basic needs covered, we will actually be free to make the choices that we actually want. So what I'm trying to say is think about this, guys. How many of the things that you choose to do are influenced or determined by money? A lot, and some of them are pretty important, like your career choice, or how many kids do you want to have, or where do you want to live, or who do you want to marry? How much is money influencing those important things about your life? If you didn't have to worry about that, if your basic needs were covered, well, you'll actually be free to choose what you actually wanted, wouldn't you? Okay, so again, and with this we close the presentation on Marx. Okay, what Marx is inviting us to do is to break free of the ideology of money. It's seeing how this ideology of money is actually selling you false ideas and ideas that are keeping you from actually enjoying a free life. So what he's saying is this world order of capitalism is not working. It's actually causing more harm than good. And what we need to do is to create a new social order with less inequality, with real opportunities for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to finish with a quote by Marx, very famous quote. He said that philosophers have, up to this point, only interpreted the world in various ways, but the point, he said, is to change it, to change the world. That's the point of philosophy. Okay, and if you want to think about it, he actually did, because he influenced the world so much that was basically a world revolution based on his ideas. But even though communism didn't work in terms of the Cold War, his criticism of capitalism is alive and more current than ever. Okay, so it's inviting us of thinking how this ideology of money that we're immersed in is, it's actually not good for us, and we need something better, and whatever is that something better will involve some of the ideas of Mr. Karl Marx. Okay, so with this we finished the presentation. So I'm sorry for the video image. It actually became night where I was recording this. So with this, we finish with Marx. Thank you for your attention. Again, read the Communist Manifesto, and we'll explore and comment all these ideas and others in the dialogues. Thank you, and have a nice day.